Yeah.
At least I've got a smile on my face.
Turkey sandwich.
Okay, great.
I'm surprised.
Welcome everybody tonight to the last meeting of 2016. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and go through and complete chapter 12, I believe it is, right? Is that what we're on? No, 11. We're going to go ahead and complete chapter 11 and get to chapter 12, and then I'm going to answer the questions that we talked about online, in line, that are coming from our good Friendship Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're starting again, restarting on page 109.
Right.
Opening of the Eyes lecture by Daisaku Ikeda. The section that says the Daishonin read the 20-line verse of the encouraging devotion chapter with his life. Now, does everybody remember where we're at? What are we talking about here? We're talking about the three powerful enemies, and the Daishonin is qualifying why they exist and who they are. And he's qualifying that they're not just theoretical from the encouraging devotion chapter of the Lotus Sutra, but that in the current day in Japan, they exist. Okay? And that actually what he's going through is fulfilling the prophecies of the Lotus Sutra in order to validate the Lotus Sutra as the supreme teaching from which the Buddhism of the sowing will be born. Do you understand? Okay, so starting with page 109, second paragraph, the Daishonin read the 20-line verse of the encouraging devotion chapter with his life. This is from the Gosho itself. Because the predictions of the Buddha are not false, the three types of enemies of the Lotus Sutra already fill the country. And yet, as though to belie the golden words of the Buddha, there seems to be no votary of the Lotus Sutra. How can this be? How can this be? But let us consider, who is it who is cursed and spoken ill of by the populace? Who is the priest who is attacked with swords and staves? Who is the priest who, because of the Lotus Sutra, is accused in petitions submitted to the courtiers and warriors? Who is the priest who is again and again banished, as the Lotus Sutra predicted? Who else in Japan, besides Nichiren, has fulfilled these predictions? But I, Nichiren, am not a votary of the Lotus Sutra because, contrary to the prediction, the gods have cast me aside. Who then, in this present age, will be the votary of the Lotus Sutra and fulfill the prophecy of the Buddha? The Buddha and Devadatta are like a form and its shadow. In lifetime after lifetime, they are never separated. Prince Shotoku and his archenemy Moriya appeared at the same time, like the blossom and the calyx of the lotus. If there exists a votary of the Lotus Sutra, then the three types of enemies are bound to exist as well. The three types of enemies have already appeared. Who then is the votary of the Lotus Sutra? Let us seek him out and make him our teacher. As the Lotus Sutra says, to find such a person is as rare as for one to find a one-eyed turtle chance upon a piece of driftwood with a hole just the right size to hold him. Continuing at the bottom of page 109. Everybody's with me, right? That was from the Gosho. Now President K's lecture. The Daishonin writes, because the predictions of the Buddhas are not false, the three types of enemies of the Lotus Sutra already fill the country. And yet, as though to belie the golden words of the Buddha, there seems to be no votary of the Lotus Sutra. How can this be? How can this be? He confirmed that the three powerful enemies had appeared in Japan in his day, exactly as predicted in the sutra. If so, he asks, then who was the votary of the Lotus Sutra who battles these enemies? Naturally, aside from the Daishonin, there were no votaries who had fought relentlessly against the three powerful enemies. To demonstrate this, he cites four kinds of persecution predicted in encouraging devotion and indicates that he has encountered all of them in the course of his own practice. They are, 1, cursed and spoken ill of by the populace. 2, attacked with swords and staves. 3, accused in petitions submitted to the courtiers and warriors because of the Lotus Sutra. And 4, banished again and again. Each of these four types of persecution each of these four types of persecution has profound meaning. Although not one of the persecutions Nichiren underwent was of ordinary scale. For example, While the sutra speaks of the votary being cursed and spoken ill of by ignorant people, Nichiren was continually vilified by people throughout Japan for more than 20 years. He writes, those who saw me scowl, while those who merely heard my name were filled with spite. He says, I am known throughout the country as a monk who transgresses the code of conduct, and my bad reputation has spread throughout the realm. And never have I heard of one hated to such a degree as is Nichiren, because he is a votary of the Lotus Sutra. All right? The description of the attacks by arrogant lay people indicate how difficult it is to change people's awareness, to awaken them. Nevertheless, the Daishonin stood up for the people's happiness, fully prepared to face storms of criticism and calumny. What an immensely lofty spirit. This point alone tells us who is the true votary of the This point alone tells us who the true votary of the Lotus Sutra is. I want to go back and reread that last paragraph again, though, because it's going to pertain to my conversation later. He says, the description of the attacks by arrogant lay people indicate how difficult it is to change people's awareness. Now, when he talks about to change people's awareness, what is he really speaking of? He's speaking to awaken them. All right? One of the questions we're going to answer later is, why is it so difficult to shakabuku everybody if everybody's a bodhisattva of the earth? This just answered that. Okay? So, as a partial answer to that answer, okay? So, the description of the attacks by arrogant lay people indicate how difficult it is to change people's awareness. Nevertheless, the Daishonin stood up for the people's happiness, fully prepared to face storms of criticism and calumny. So, in other words, when you're going to do shakabuku, you're going to face storms of criticism and calumny. Not that everybody's going to agree with you because they're bodhisattvas of the earth innately. Do you understand? What an immensely lofty spirit, because you're going against the grain. You're fighting for the sake of other people's happiness. You're encountering opposition for their sake, not for your own. All right? This point tells us who was the true votary of the Lotus Sutra. With regard to the second of the four persecutions cited by Nichiren, being attacked with sword and staves, he discusses this in detail in Persecution by the Sword and Staff, which is what I still want to read to you eventually at some point in time in between these chapters. Writing, only I, Nichiren, have read with my entire being the 20-line verse of the encouraging devotion chapter of the Lotus Sutra. He thus indicates how, aside from himself, there was no one who had met the persecution by both sword and staff for the sake of the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren cites being attacked with swords during the Komatsubara persecution in 1264 and the Tatsunokuchi persecution in 1271. And as an instance of being attacked with staves, the Daishonin cites being struck in the face with the sutra scroll that was wielded like a staff at the beginning of the Tatsunokuchi persecution. When Heino Seimin and his forces descended on Nichiren's dwelling at Matsubagayatsu in Kamakura in 1271, a retainer named Shobo, an ex-follower of Nichiren, seized the scroll of the 5th volume of the Lotus Sutra that Nichiren was carrying in his robe, in the binding of his robe, and struck him with it in the face. The 5th scroll, and now listen to this, because this weirded out Nichiren. Even Nichiren, he thought, that's bizarre that this guy just hit me with that. Because the 5th scroll of the Lotus Sutra contains the encouraging devotion which it proclaims that the votary of Lotus Sutra will be attacked with swords and staves. Okay? Because he was struck with this particular scroll, the Daishonin writes of the sutra statements, what a mysterious passage of prediction, he writes. All of these facts further corroborate Nichiren's claim that he has read the Lotus Sutra with his life, which is what qualifies him to be the votary of the Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law, and to teach the Buddhism of the sowing at the time when the Buddhism of the harvest has lost its power. You follow? All right. The third persecution of the four cited by Nichiren is attacks by arrogant false sages. specifically in the form of unfounded accusations made to the authorities. All right? As I mentioned earlier, the Tatsunokuchi persecution and subsequent Sato exile occurred as the direct result of such fabrications. Okay? Now, everybody's aware that President Ikeda also faced false fabrications, right?
Right.
After the Kansai campaign, they put him in jail because they said they had, violated the anti-inflammatory whatever. That was a false statement. He was ultimately found not guilty. In other words, when evil people, at the top of page 111, first full paragraph. In other words, when evil people seek to bring down a person of justice, their only avenue is defamation and character assassination. So to be slandered is not anything to be ashamed of. You will be slandered if you propagate this teaching properly. I'll read it again. In other words, when evil people, you'll face if you become the Buddha, you're going to face the three powerful enemies, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to face this opposition we're referring to as evil people, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, in other words, when evil people seek to bring down a person of justice, their only avenue is defamation and character assassination. So when you hear somebody being defamed or character assassinated, don't jump in and listen to it and go, oh, yeah? Really? That's animality. You should be aware that that's also a sign that that person could be absolutely not guilty of any of that. Take a look at the person that's delivering the defamation and character assassination. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are actually going against the teaching of the sutra, because there's nowhere in the Nichiren's teachings that he qualifies that it's okay to defame or to character assassinate. You may not disrespect the Buddha nature of any human being, even if they're evil. That's the teaching. So when you hear within the circle of people that are supposedly believers, words coming out of their mouths that are the exact opposite of that, pause. Think it through. Don't be swept along with that. Don't be sucked into their bad karma. Likewise, because arrogant false sages have no sound religious justification for attacking a genuine votary of the Lotus Sutra, their only recourse is to resort to dishonest, underhanded means. Although Ryokan was supposed to be strictly upholding the precepts, we got that right? He was a precepts Nimbutsu dude, right? Mm-hmm. I'm better than you because I'm holier than you. I'm more pure than you. Including the injunction not to lie. He nevertheless tried to defame people through falsehoods. Okay, so here he's saying he's like, I uphold all the precepts. One of the precepts is not to lie, yet this guy is a constant liar. This starkly highlights his hypocrisy and duplicity, making him unqualified to be a priest. That was the position that Daishonin took. When he wrote to him, remember, I read you all those things he said straight up in the letter to Ryokan. You're a false sage, you're not even a real priest, you're a bullshit. He didn't say bullshit, but that's basically what he said, okay? The last of the four persecutions cited by Nichiren is that of exile, representing persecution by the authorities. The sutra clearly indicates that the votary will be driven out. Since the passage in encouraging devotion states again and again we will be banished, the Daishonin places great importance on the phrase again and again, signifying repeated exile. The Daishonin discussed this important point at length earlier in the opening of the Eyes, writing, if Nichiren had not been banished time and again for the sake of the Lotus Sutra, what would these words again and again have meant? Even Tiantai and Dingyo were not able to fulfill this prediction represented by the words again and again, much less was anyone else. Everybody's with me, right? Mm-hmm. Had it not been for him, but more specifically, had it not been for him experiencing the life that he experienced. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Had it not been for him experiencing these experiences, what would these words again and again have meant? The Daishonin asks. He was exiled not once, but twice, to Izu in 1261 and to Sato in 1271. After he moved to Mount Minobu, there were rumors that he would be exiled a third time. couldn't find him. He was too far off in the woods. Normally, it would have been unthinkable for a person who had been pardoned to be condemned to such a fate again. And it was all the more so in this case, given that exile in those days was tantamount to a death sentence. Once again, when you were exiled, it was for the purpose of you to die, but then to not have to take responsibility for having killed you, right? It also shows how obstinate and persistent the devilish nature is. A votary of the Lotus Sutra is one who resolutely battles and triumphs over this devilish nature. Now, what is this devilish nature, did he say? Yeah, a devilish function. These things appear in a myriad of varieties. All kinds of obstacles are devilish functions. All kinds of persecutions are devilish functions. All the things that you say that you want to rid your life of while you're practicing diligently, okay, are actually functions that are there to propel you to the truth and the reality of your true identity, and to do so in a manner that you can convey and include all other people. Not to exclude everyone else because they're not perfect and wonderful like you. They're not great like you. They have problems just like you. They are just like you. This is the whole point. If you deify Nichiren to the point that you look at Nichiren Daishonin as something different or outside of being the ordinary person that you are, you've missed his whole teaching. His whole teaching is that we're all ordinary people. And because of that, we are all Buddhas. And because we all have that potentiality, we are all bodhisattvas of the earth, but only after we add the ingredient of action and become awakened. Otherwise, it's in a latent dream state. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, so he says, it also shows how obstinate and persistent the devilish nature is. In other words, it's not easily defeated. A votary of the Lotus Sutra is one who resolutely battles. Now, what does resolutely mean? What does resolutely indicate? Resolutely means, it hasn't been easy to do. Resolutely means it's taken a great deal of focus and effort, okay, and perception to overcome it. Resolutely battles and triumphs. So it's not enough just to persevere and to suffer and to uphold, but to never win. You must win. That's the teaching. And that's what the Shonin is promising in this lifetime. You're transforming your karma. That's to win. Okay? That's not to eliminate the occurrence of. That's to always defeat. Right? Do you understand the difference?
Yes.
The important thing is to maintain the spirit to keep on fighting with the unshakable resolve to overpower even the obstinate devilish nature. Let me read that paragraph again, because this is the point. It's not the absence of difficulty. It also shows how obstinate and persistent the devilish nature is. A votary of the Lotus Sutra, which is what all of us aspire to be if we aren't already, correct? A votary of the Lotus Sutra is one who resolutely battles and triumphs over this devilish nature. And what's the first, the predication of being able to defeat that devil is to recognize it. That's why the teaching is there, for you to be able to recognize reality for what reality is. That's reality. Okay? Reality is the truth. Reality is not an embellishment or a guess. Reality is the way it is. Okay? So he says, the important thing is to maintain the spirit. What is the spirit? Maintain the spirit. To keep on fighting with the unshakable resolve. What is that?
State.
Huh? Fate?
No, state.
No, what is this? Come on, this is something very specific. I'll say it in Japanese. Mugi washin. What's that mean? Doubt-free faith. A votary of the Lotus Sutra is one who resolutely battles and triumphs over this devilish nature. The only reason they can triumph is because they never give up. That's why they triumph. The important thing is to maintain the spirit to keep on fighting. That's the only way you win. That's the only way you can overcome. And that's what he just said in the previous sentence. But now this is saying the important thing. Okay? Because you may not know that. You may not be a votary yet. You may be reading this for the first time. For all intents and purposes, honestly. You hopefully are getting a different understanding than somebody that's reading it the first time. But understand that it's encouraging. The important thing is to maintain the spirit, to keep on fighting. That's mugiwashing, that's doubt-free faith. With the unshakable resolve, that's doubt-free faith. To overcome even the obstinate devilish functions, that's mugiwashing. Nichiren writes, the Buddha and Devadatta are like a form and its shadow in lifetime after lifetime. They are never separated. Now again, he goes to, I said Ajita, it's a Sita. You should always remember Sita. A Sita is because the seer. Ajita is Manjushri. I screw that up all the time. Again, a Sita, we saying in the past life, Devadatta was the seer that introduced and taught him the Lotus Sutra. Do you understand? What in the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni qualifies, is that Devadatta, which the entire assembly knows is the most evil of all evil, right? He's already fallen into hell alive.
Yes.
Okay, is given the prediction that he will become sun, moon, bright, or whatever it was that he was given that prediction, right?
Right.
So the point is that he says that the reason for that is that guy and there's no separation between us. You see him as completely evil, and you see me as completely the Buddha. But actually, his function was to demonstrate evil, and my function is to demonstrate the Buddhism of the harvest, okay? The result of Buddhahood, okay? Not the cause of Buddhahood. And we're there together in a process of teaching. And lifetime after lifetime, this seer is like part of me. We're never separate. That would be almost non-duality, right?
Right.
That's almost the non-duality of good and evil, represented in the form of two beings, correct? He says, the Buddha and Devadatta are like form and its shadow. Okay, now the shadow isn't the form, but it's always a reflection of the form. It's never absent of the form. The form has to be there for the shadow to be there.
Yes.
Okay, do you understand?
Yes.
In lifetime after lifetime, they are never separated. We're never separated from these obstacles because that's how we prove we're Buddhas, and that's how we teach other people to become that same innate true identity, correct? The activities of the votary of the Lotus Sutra call forth the three powerful enemies. Come here so I can kick your ass, so I can prove that what I'm saying is true. Okay? That's the deal. The activities of the votary of the Lotus Sutra call forth the three powerful enemies. Because is he trying to avoid them?
No.
Is he afraid of them? No, he's looking for their ass. Okay? He's got a date with them. All right? It's time. This is now where we go from theoretical to actual Ichinen Sanzen.
Yeah.
This is being the Buddha versus wanting to be the Buddha. Functions, Sutra call forth the three-part functions activated by the fundamental darkness. Functions, okay, these three powerful enemies, functions activated by the fundamental darkness that seeks to obstruct the votary's efforts. The votary knows there's going to be an influence that's going to seek to obstruct his efforts. That's why the votary never anticipates that there's going to be this life with no problem, no difficulty, only solutions. That doesn't occur. Did it occur in Nichiren's life? Did it occur in President Toda's life? Does it occur in President Ikeda's life?
No.
I mean, it doesn't occur in my life. I don't know what everybody's expecting. That isn't the teaching. Okay? You have no example of that being the teaching. So why does everybody want that to be the teaching? That's not the teaching. The teaching is in heaven. The teaching of heaven is an expedient means. The teaching of the Buddha land is an expedient means. Okay? So, just as a moving form is followed by its shadow, so the Lotus Sutra's votary is dogged by the three powerful enemies. When evil flourishes and good is defeated, the function of the Dharma nature or inherent enlightenment is extinguished. But when good flourishes and evil is defeated, the function of fundamental darkness or ignorance is extinguished. A struggle between good and evil takes place in our lives at every moment. At every moment, right? We live in the 9 worlds, right? We don't live in one of the 9 worlds. I don't care how far you park your ass up in the 9 worlds. You're still going to experience all 9 of them. All right? A struggle between good and evil takes place in our lives at every moment. Nichiren writes, Prince Shotoku and his archenemy Moriya appeared at the same time like the blossom in the calyx of the lotus. Accordingly, the only way to strengthen good is to wage a continuous struggle against evil. Although we speak of the Buddhist law, and how do we do that? How do we wage that continuous struggle against evil? We embrace the Gohonzon continuously. All right? Although we speak of the Buddhist law, the law itself is invisible. Do y'all understand that? The law isn't a thing. The law isn't a person. The law isn't separate. Right?
Yes.
The beneficent law manifests. When does it become real? When does the law go from being something that's abstract to something that's concrete? Only in our lives. Only in the function of our lives as the Buddha.
Yes.
Do you understand? It's already innately there in the environment, right? It's only called forth by relation of the Buddha nature itself. Everybody's with me? All right. So it is extremely rare, however, to encounter a votary who struggles against and triumphs over the 3 powerful enemies. It is difficult to encounter a genuine leader of Buddhism. We know that. Therefore, Nichiren writes, let us seek him out and make him our teacher. Okay? That's mentor-disciple and why. Right there. As the Lotus Sutra says, to find such a person is as rare as for a one-eyed turtle to chance upon a piece of driftwood. He urges us to seek out the votary of the Lotus Sutra and make him our teacher, our mentor. The mentor-disciple relationship only comes into existence through the disciple's steadfast efforts to seek the mentor. I'll say it again. It's very important for you to understand. This is all about your seeking spirit. It begins and ends with you. That's why no one else can attain Buddhahood for you. No one else can give you Buddhahood. This occurs as an individual result of an effort you make. The mentor-disciple relationship only comes into existence through the disciple's steadfast efforts to seek the mentor. Such efforts allow us to deeply sense the greatness of the mentor's struggles. In that regard, we can view the opening of the eyes as a call for us to awaken to the true votary of the Lotus Sutra, who battles fundamental darkness and arrogant false sages, as well as our true selves, as people who seek their mentor and join him in fighting unceasingly against life's inherent devilish nature. I'll read that again. In that regard, we can view the opening of the eyes as a call for us to awaken to the true votary of the Lotus Sutra, who battles fundamental darkness and arrogant false sages, as well as our true selves as people who seek their mentor and join him in fighting unceasingly against life's inherent devilish nature. Okay, that's the end of chapter 11. Now we had a couple of questions, and I got a bunch of stuff I'm going to pull out to reference to answer those questions.
Some of these.
Yeah. Sorry, before it goes. Okay. I'll try to remember. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, 2 questions. No, actually, there's a lot of questions now. Only 2.
原品无名是什么？
fundamental darkness.
Okay, when you ask me questions, I gotta take them lightly.
Wow.
Oh my God.
But there's, again, it would be easier if I just had a printer. I just lost my space, my place there. So all right, I might have just messed up something there. At any rate, we had questions. We had a question, and I'm going to read the question, and then I'm going to answer the question, and I'm going to try and remember all these things I had separated in order to make it make sense. But the question is on karma. It's a question on karma. It's saying, Nichiren Daishonin says that we can change any karma in this lifetime. We are not aware what exactly our karma is. Why do we encounter certain difficulties at a certain time? If we overcome those difficulties, does it mean we transformed our karma or only lessening karmic retribution? If we are able to transform our karma, shouldn't we be able to live a life without difficulties? That's question one. And then next, Shakabuku in the Lotus Sutra, it is said that the bodhisattvas of the earth emerge from the earth and their mission is to propagate the law. If there are so many bodhisattvas on the earth, why is Shakabuku so difficult? The person who starts to practice should already be the bodhisattvas of the earth. Why is it such a big challenge then to let this person start chanting, start this practice? Isn't this that the person already has a relationship with the Gohonzon in the past? Now, if I go into the first part of the first question, when we talk about lessening karmic retribution, and that's where this look up L for me. Leave this one and look up, unless it's here. Hang on. No, I think I have it here. Is this it? Yes, it's here. Never mind. Okay, so what I'm going to do, though, the answer to this specifically is already contained in the orally transmitted teachings in a specific place. But for me to just go to that spot and grab that answer will not be as complete of an answer as I would like to give. So I would, if you will indulge me, I'd like to read a few. This is from the OTT, where it's the essential passage in each chapter. Okay, so I'm going to start by reading, starting with prophecies on chapter 9. Prophecies conferred, on learners and adepts. And this is going to build to an understanding that I want you to perceive is coming from Nichiren. It's not coming from me. Okay? This is from the OTT. All right? So this is...
Which page?
What I'm reading from right now would start in 212.
212.
Okay? This is the essential passage in each chapter. And I'm going to start with chapter 9, and I'm going to go to chapter 22. There's only a paragraph. Okay, and then I'll get to chapter 15, which is really the point. Okay, prophecies, chapter 9, prophecies confirmed on learners and adepts. Text: He dwells securely in the Buddha way. The Lotus Sutra reads the Buddha's law, and thereby seeks the unsurpassed way. Glosses on the right, like little notations to the left of the text that he wrote. He goes for glosses on the right. Buddha way is the entire Lotus Sutra. Unsurpassed way is the Daimoku. He qualifies that. Do you understand that distinction? He's making that distinction. Do you understand? Buddha way, the entire Lotus Sutra, essential and theoretical teaching, but the unsurpassed way, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? Very clear, understandable, right? He says, glosses on the left, Buddha way, broad and abbreviated discussions, the theory, the doctrine. Unsurpassed way, the essential point. Again, true identity, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Alternative reading, though he dwells securely in the Buddha way, yet he seeks the unsurpassed way. And this is it's kind of confusing, but listen to what he says. Summary, this passage is saying that when one first comes to understand and realize the wonderful principle of the three bodies of the Buddha that we have always been endowed with, this is called seeking the unsurpassed way. This is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? Do you understand? All right. So, next, going to the teacher of the law. So again, what did he qualify? He's qualifying this understanding of the three bodies. This is the seeking the unsurpassed way. So the point that I'm trying to get to is that what I'm going to be working on trying to clarify here through the things that I'm reading you is what she's talking about are two different things. She's saying, I won't get into her specific question, but she's talking about comparing lessening karmic retribution or transforming our karma. The transformation of your karma is something completely different than karmic. What do you guys? What do you? When I say when someone says transformed their karma, what do you think that really means? What are we talking about in the Buddhism of the sowing when we talk about transforming one's karma? What is the process of transforming one's karma?
To change
to
your
be
life state,
life condition.
life condition.
Change.
Yeah.
Switch to a Buddha mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's to become awakened versus it's to go from the dream realm of the 9 worlds to the 10th, the awakened state of the 10th world. Now, when you go to the awakened state of the 10th world, do you leave the 9 worlds?
No.
Or do you live, where do you live? You still live in the 9 worlds, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no separation between the two. It's just this perception. So this, what we're talking about when we say transformation. Now, what occurs at that point? What occurs at that point that we just became the Buddha? Because that's what just happened, right? We just became the Buddha. When we realized we're the Buddha, as I was going to get into reading all the chapter 16 again, I don't have to do that. Okay? What is that point? What happens when I'm talking about transformation and I'm saying it's that point? What occurs at that point?
You go to
You
Buddha
enlightened.
wisdom.
Yes. But what is the result of that?
To be a Buddha without changing your present form.
You become a Buddha in your present form.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what does that result then in?
Your whole life changed.
Simultaneous cause and effect.
Yeah.
Yes, going back to beginningless time. And what path does that set you on though? Once again, there are 3 manners in which we transmigrate, right?
Yeah.
One is through the first 6 worlds. The other is through the last 3 worlds,
Yep.
or the next 3 worlds, and the last is birth and death in the realm of Buddhahood,
Yep.
right? So when you become the Buddha, you enter a realm where in every single lifetime you will encounter the correct teacher, the correct teaching, and the correct object of devotion. That's what's eternal. It's not the absence of problems or difficulties or all the other issues that the teaching and the text qualify that the Buddha asks to encounter in order to overcome and demonstrate the power of the law. So do you understand? When we talk about transformation, transforming the transformation is the transformation that every lifetime I'm the Buddha, like me now. Okay? I guarantee you this isn't my first time. Okay? That may sound arrogant, but it's a statement I can make based on everything I've read with great certainty. All right? So, that path that triggered that process, okay, in my early practice, why did I was able to understand things? Why did I learn? Why did I study things nobody else studied? Why did I seek what I sought? Because ultimately, I was going to come to the conclusion, I am the Buddha. I was going to attain actual Ichinen Sanzen. Why? Because I've already attained actual Ichinen Sanzen. In each lifetime, that's what I do. That's not a statement of arrogance. That's actually the statement of the doctrine. That's what the doctrine says my life transforms into. Okay? That's not about me judging me. This is all based on what Nichiren's telling me. This is all my mukiwashi, my doubt-free faith. My doubt-free faith is what tells me I am the Buddha, not my arrogance. Do you understand? Okay, so I don't know if I'll be able to get into all of this, but everybody understands that, again, this concept of non-duality, right? Okay, so what is the concept of non-duality? What's the flip way? If you go into the dictionary and you look for non-duality of anything, all you do is find go see oneness, go see oneness, go see oneness, right? It doesn't want. This is like they want to go into the oneness rather than the non-duality. But the oneness makes it is a little more difficult to kind of perceive in my mind, okay? Because the non-duality is very specific in what it states in that statement of those using those words. Okay? Non-duality means they are not two different things. Period. Okay? Oneness, yes, of course, indicates they're the same. But non-duality specifically qualifies. They're not different. People can see oneness much more relevantly than they can see the other thing. Yeah, the non-duality. So, I'm again trying to answer this question. Did I lose you?
No.
Okay. So, what I was trying to get to when I was going to read all of this stuff from the OTT and getting to this point, and this is Mr. Koshikawa's favorite passage from the OTT. I read it to you again. This is the transformation that's spoken of in this, her question, what she's talking about. This is the answer. And in order that day and night with constant diligence they may seek the Buddha way. Constant diligence day and night, this has always been the way to seek the Buddha way. It's the only way to seek the Buddha way. Okay? And then summary. This passage is saying that if in a single moment of life we exhaust the pains and trials of millions of kalpas, then instant after instant there will arise in us the three Buddha bodies with which we are eternally endowed. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is such a diligent practice. Okay? So that's Buddhahood. That moment is the moment that they're speaking of. That's the simultaneity of cause and effect of having achieved actual Ichinen Sanzen. You will never transmigrate as a common mortal in the 9 worlds again. You will always go into birth and death as it relates to Buddhahood. Do you understand? Yes. Okay, so Nichiren Daishonin says we can change any karma in this lifetime. What does the Daishonin actually say? All prayers go on, no prayer goes unanswered, correct? Yes. What do you say about this lifetime in that sentence? He says we can all achieve Buddhahood in this lifetime.
Yes.
Okay? But changing any karma? What do you mean change any karma? What is the karma you're speaking of? Being without a loved one? Being without a good job? Being without a sports car? No. You're talking about your Buddha nature, your Buddhahood, not an event. Okay? So when you ask a question like this is around an event, okay, you're not understanding the premise correctly. So let me say it again. Nichiren Daishonin says we can change any karma in this lifetime. Yes, he does. All right? We are not exactly, not aware exactly what our karma is. Well, actually we are. Moment by moment it's revealed to us. Okay? We can't see the future yet, but we know what's already in the present and in the past. And that is our karma. Right?
Right.
Okay, so that's not really completely true. Then it says, why do we encounter certain difficulties at a certain time? Why would you think that we encounter certain difficulties at a certain time?
All the time, though.
Wow. Your mission.
It's our karma. It is our mission. Yes, it's a function. It's the function of the development of our actual Buddha nature, not a theoretical Buddha nature. It's the thing driving us to achieve actual Ichinen Sanzen, which isn't all just good, happy. All my growth comes from suffering, virtually. You know, seriously, when you hear me talking around this table, it's because I've suffered as much as I've suffered. I had to find out reasons why that still was true. How did that work? Okay? That's what makes me qualified to answer these questions. Only the fact that, and it hasn't stopped. You know me well enough, my personal life. Do I live a simple, easy personal life? Those of you that know me, that know my wife? No, we're faced with constant difficulties, but we beat their ass every time. That's the point. That's the point. So he says, we are not aware exactly what our karma is. Why do we encounter certain difficulties at a certain time? Ultimately, for the purpose of your attainment of Buddhahood. Actual Ichinen Sanzen. Not showing benefits that you can talk about at a meeting and encourage to people. All right? We're talking about actual Ichinen Sanzen. It says, if we overcome those difficulties.
She asked questions.
What? Oh. Yeah. Okay. There's Shufan right there.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering the question. I have been.
But I'm not done answering yet, dear. I'm not done answering.
Hello?
Yeah.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone you says because we encounter certain difficulties at a certain time, but if a person who just started to practice, I mean, he chant so many Nam-myoho-renge-kyo and Daimoku in our life that we are able to overcome those difficulties who encounter longer time, or I mean, I'm not really understanding this to relate it to this karma issue.
Okay, then let me finish my answer, and it might be contained within that, okay? Because I didn't get to your next one. It says, if we overcome those difficulties, does it mean we transformed our karma or only lessen our karmic retribution? Okay. What is karmic retribution? I mean, it depends on how you perceive, is the glass half full or is it half empty? I mean, what is retribution if it's actually the impetus that makes you attain Buddhahood? It's actually your good friend. That's why we don't qualify good friends and bad friends on the basis of nice or not nice. Okay? Because not nice can get you to correct understanding as easily as nice can, and vice versa. It depends on who you are and what the circumstance of your karma is. And when you discuss the kinds of things that we're talking about here, Shufan, you've asked some very deep questions that a new member would never have to worry about having the answers to. Don't forget, some time ago, I even had this conversation with Anik. She said, well, I want to learn all this stuff. I'm saying, well, you're not supposed to yet. And I gave you the Goshas where it quotes. It specifically says, just focus on Daimoku. Focus on getting benefit. You don't have to learn all this stuff on the front end as a new member. Now, frankly, you're not a new member. So I don't know where the questions are coming from. Are they coming from you? Are they coming from another person? But again, if we overcome these difficulties, does it mean we transformed our karma? No, it means that we validated the proof of the law. That's what those obstacles were there for in the first place. Transforming, this isn't all self-service for the sake of us, as though we're separate and always unique. We're not. There is no separation between us and all other living beings. There is no separation between our Buddha nature and the Buddha nature of all other Buddhas. No separation. It means, again, oneness, inseparability. So when you're looking at this all about like a scorecard kind of a thing, like lessening karma, okay, I had this difficulty because I'm being punished. I have this difficulty because I made the cause for an unhappy circumstance that's in conflict with what I really want. That's really not what this is about from that perspective. This is about a more eternalized perspective of oneself as a temporary gathering of the five components that continues to manifest lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime with a specific intent and purpose as a bodhisattva of the earth. As an awakened bodhisattva of the earth. Okay? So, it says, does it mean we transformed our karma or only lessening our karmic retribution? It means that we're fulfilling our mission as bodhisattvas of the earth is what it really means. Okay, lessening our karmic retribution means that as practitioners, whatever we face as an obstacle or difficulty has automatically been mitigated to some degree by our faith itself. All right? I can read you on lessening, the definition of on lessening karmic retribution and make it very easy for you to understand. All right. This is lessening, what time is it? Okay. You're looking for page 361 of the Buddhist dictionary. The principle, lessening one's karmic retribution, the principle that one can experience the effects of bad karma from the past to a lesser degree because of Buddhist faith and practice. In general, Buddhism attributes one's sufferings to one's past actions or causes that remain in one's life as karma, asserting that one must suffer the effect of every negative cause made in the past. The Mahavira Parinirvana Sutras, Fa Xuan's Chinese translation of the Nirvana Sutra states, however, it is due to the blessings obtained by protecting the law that they can diminish in this lifetime their sufferings and retribution. This passage suggests that due to the benefits accumulated through faith and practice, one can diminish in terms of both time and intensity negative karmic retribution that would otherwise torment one harshly over a longer period, even several lifetimes. So your assumption is that you're already experiencing less than karmic retribution by virtue of being someone practicing the correct teaching and striving to attain actual Ichen and Sanzen. Do you understand? That's what that just said. You're already experiencing less than karmic retribution when you experience whatever you're experiencing as a bodhisattva of the earth. Do you understand? I'll read it again if you don't. Let me just go on. Nichiren states in his writing, Lessening One's Karmic Retribution, if one's heavy karma from the past is not expiated within this lifetime. So the Daishonin qualifies all your difficulties as that you experienced in this lifetime as, hey, congratulations, now you got it on the table where you can see it for what it is. You know in this lifetime you have the capacity to see it correctly. You can overcome it and get rid of it forever because it came out to attack you now. Do you understand? That's not to be avoided or to be...
trouble-free.
Huh? It's not trouble-free. It's not only that. It's not even to lament. It's to rejoice.
It said, bring it on.
It says, bring it on. It says, the more shit I get out in this lifetime, the more I know I whipped it.
Right.
For sure I don't have to deal with it again. Do you follow? Mm-hmm. Shufan? Are you with me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So he says, only if one's heavy karma from the past is not expiated within this lifetime, one must undergo the sufferings of hell in the future. But if one experiences extreme hardship in this life because of the Lotus Sutra, because of your practice and the difficulties associated with the attainment of actual Ichen and Sanzen, the sufferings of hell will vanish instantly. Now, why do they vanish instantly? Do the sufferings go away?
No.
No, but how do you receive, feel, or perceive them? No longer is hell. No longer is confusion. No longer is something that weakens or debilitates you. It lights your fire. It makes you sassy. It gives you confidence that what you're doing will work out the way you anticipated that it should.
It's Buddha.
It's Buddha. Do you follow? Imagine think of it this way. When they put the Daishonin on the horse to go to Tatsunokuchi, he full knew well what was at the end of that ride. Did he ever start freaking out? No. He didn't lament the fact that he's on a horse ready to get his head cut off. In fact, he didn't even go so far as to say, they won't be able to cut off my head. He said, God, it makes me so happy to give my life for the law. Do you know how rare it is to be able to give your life for the law? That's what jazzed him up. He didn't give a shit. He's going to be reborn again.
Right.
Right? What realm is he going to be reborn in? Doing it this way, always and forever, as the Buddha, which should be the ultimate, highest goal that each of us has, because every other goal we have as individuals is contained within the accomplishment of that goal. Do you follow?
Yes.
Okay, so, where was I here? So he's saying that they will vanish instantly, and when one dies, one will obtain the blessings of the human and heavenly worlds, as well as those of the three vehicles and the one vehicle. According to this principle, Buddhist faith and practice may cause one suffering and hardship because of everything that's involved with what's included in being the Buddha, but will relieve one of hellish suffering, and that is one's due. You will not get what you were supposed to get. It will be lessened. Okay, you go on to ask them, if we are able to transform our karma, shouldn't we be able to live a life without difficulties? And the answer there is no. Do you understand that now?
Yes.
Okay, but it is without difficulties, because when you have obstacles and no fear and absolute confidence that they will be overcome, they are not difficulties. Do you understand?
They're just challenges.
Yeah, whatever you're facing is a reflection of you. If you face it as a common mortal, it's going to be reflected in your life as in a common mortal way. If you face it as the Buddha, it will be reflected in your life in the Buddha way. All right? So then it says in Shakabuku, in the Lotus Sutra, it is said that the bodhisattvas of the earth emerge from the earth and their mission is to propagate the law. If there are so many bodhisattvas on the earth, why is Shakabuku so difficult? For that, I go to Volume 2 of the Writings of Nichiren Daishonin, my favorite Gosho, which is the unanimous declaration by the Buddhists throughout the three existences on which teachings are to be upheld and which are to be rejected. On page 861, the last pages, and I won't read much of this because this is supposed to be a secret teaching. I'm not supposed to let it out of the bag. You'll have to look it up yourself. But he says now, hang on. Here. It's on page 860 and 861 is where I'm looking. Okay, hang on. I just had this there. Okay, here we go. Right, sorry. When one wakens to and comes to understand this, then one can attain the goal of Buddhahood. Let me start one paragraph. Okay, go to 860, the first full paragraph in the second column. On volume 2 of the Writings of Nichiren Daishonin, it says, the Buddhas of the three existences make their appearance in the world because they bear in mind the one great reason or one great affair. The word one represents the truth of the middle way, the Lotus Sutra. The word great represents the truth of non-substantiality, and the Flower Garland Sutra, the word affair, represents the truth of temporary existence, and the Agama, Correct and Equal, and Wisdom Sutras. These three constitute the unity of the three truths as expounded in the teachings of the Buddha's lifetime. When one wakens to and comes to understand this, then one can attain the goal of Buddhahood. Hence, this constitutes the fulfillment of the original intention for which the Buddhas appear in the world, the direct road to the attainment of Buddhahood by living beings. The reason for which they appear consists of causes and conditions. The causes are the unity of the three truths that exists, eternal and unchanging, within the bodies of all living beings. That is the fact that we already are Buddhas exactly as we are. Hence they are referred to collectively as causes. But although the three inherent causes or potentials of the Buddha nature are all possessed by all beings, if such beings do not encounter the right conditions by meeting a good friend or teacher, then they will not become awakened. They will not understand their Buddha nature. And their Buddha nature will not manifest itself. Okay? This is straight from the Gosho. If they encounter the necessary conditions by meeting a good friend, however, then their Buddha nature will invariably become manifest. Hence, such meetings are referred to as conditions. Okay? So, you ask, why is it so? It's completely a function of karma. Yes, they're all bodhisattvas of the earth, theoretically, because they're all Buddhas, theoretically. When I go into the first of the 6 stages of practice, that's the stage of being a Buddha in theory, right? Yes. That includes everybody. That's why all living beings are Buddhas, because they all have the Buddha nature innately as an inherent potential. But unless they meet a good friend that can awaken them, that's our function, is to awaken people, not to live lives free of difficulty or to get every little last thing we want, but to find the things in our lives that truly make us happy and that can validate our existence as thus come ones, so we can teach, so we can save others. Us not having difficulties doesn't save a goddamn person. Do you understand? And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're here to save people. We're not here to be rock stars or beauty queens. Although that could be part of our karma. But each one of us has a separate, different karma. Okay, so we can't all be lumped into one thing. That's why we don't allow that. That's why that's a slander. That's why evil is contained within good. That's why there is no differentiation, because there can be no equality if there's any differentiation. This is the point. Do you follow?
Yes.
Do you understand now, Shufan? Did that answer your questions a little bit? We can take this up more one-on-one, but that should have gotten us a little further along. Oh, what time is it?
Yeah,
My phone
sorry
went.
to
No,
disturb
fine.
your lessons.
No, you don't disturb. Hey, look, I actually appreciate it when somebody asks questions like this. Because did you see how many? You should have seen how many points of reference I actually was going to pull out and start reading to you to try and make my point. So it doesn't bother me at all. You never disturb anything, and the function of these Wednesday meetings is to advance everyone's faith. You're part of that, everyone. There are many people that will be watching this potentially. Who knows? I don't know how many people may or may not that aren't people that are sitting at this table. You actually asked very germane questions.
Yeah.
Okay, very important questions that needed to be answered directly. And I may not have answered it well. I'm not feeling well, but I did my best. And I hope that helps a little bit.
Clear.
What I'll do is, there's so many more Gosho. I was going to read through so many Gosho that I had so many Gosho references. And I didn't have the time or the life condition to get it all to you, to put it in Facebook or to do what you do, Sling. So I'm going to take all of what I was trying to convey here and consolidate it with cut and paste URLs, and you can put that out and read what I wrote, what I was going to read, and it's in everything I was going to read you, and especially read the essential phrase from each chapter from the OTT, because this is actually the orally transmitted teachings is the Bible, so to speak, as it relates to expressing Nichiren's specific call to us as his disciples. In other words, this isn't a general writing. This is a writing to Buddhas from the original Buddha, encouraging the other Buddhas, this is what you're going to encounter, and this is the correct way to perceive it, based on your doubt-free faith, because that's why you're a Buddha. I can say these things to you because we're the same. Right? Right. Okay. So thank you, everybody. And I'm sorry my voice was so screwed up. And let's have a wonderful 2017 and a safe into the 2016. And thank you for coming tonight. I don't know what time it is, but I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.